Hi, everybody. Welcome into the Wolfman Gardening Channel. As I said last week, this is the perfect time to be planting our peppers. It's almost mid-February. It's time to get these peppers and get them seeded out. And I'm going to tell you 3 things that you can do to get a better germination out of your pepper seeds. And what we're going to do is we're planting our peppers today. I'm going to show you how I do it. I do want to remind everybody I'm in zone 8, so I may be able to plant them a little bit sooner than people in zones like 6, 5, or something like that. So just remember, you want to do this anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost date. And my last frost date here in zone 8, where I live in North Texas, is going to be somewhere around that first part of April to mid-April. So I'm going to get these in now, and next week I'll put another video out where we'll do our tomato plants. And last year we put out about 20 different varieties of tomato plants. We didn't do real well with them, had a lot of root rot because of all the rain that we had, and I'll go into that in more in depth next week on the video when I do tomatoes. But like today's focus is peppers. 3 things that you really want to pay attention to when you're planting your pepper seeds in order to get great germination and get a pretty high success rate of germination in well-drained soil. You want to keep your humidity and temperature just right, somewhere between 70 and 80 degrees. And you also want to make sure you plant your seeds at the proper depth. Those 3 things there, and you should have successful germination. The first thing you want to do whenever you're getting ready to plant seeds is you want to make sure you prepare the seed starting mix that you're going to use. Now, I know a lot of people will try to use like compost or composted manure or something like that. I don't have a whole lot of luck with that because it's not a very well drained. It works really good out in your garden beds when you have that sun and that wind that's blowing through. It does pretty good out there because then it's going to hold and retain some of that moisture. But for your seed starting mix, you want your cells to be moist, but what you don't want is it to be soaked. And in order to do that, I just use regular seed starting mix. Now this stuff already has all the stuff in it, the peat moss. It's got everything you need to start seeds. Now, if you want to, you can use some of the compost, but if you're going to use the compost, I highly recommend that you put in some perlite or something like that where it's going to open that up a little bit where it can actually drain a little bit more. But for here, what we're going to do is we're going to use a regular seed starting mix. That's what we're going to do with 95% of the seeds that we start here at Wolfman Gardening. Another important thing is, like I said, seed depth. One thing that I struggled with in the beginning was planting these seeds a little too deep. Now, just because you have about 1.5 inches here, about 1.5 inches, but I used to plant them about midway down, which is about 1 inch, 1.25 inches deep. And that was just too deep for a lot of these seeds. They'll try to germinate, but it just takes so long for them to come up and surface that a lot of times they'll end up not doing very well. So what I recommend is never go over 1/2 inch on 90% of your seeds, especially these smaller seeds and stuff that come, these pepper seeds are really small. You only want to put them about 1/4 inch deep. I've planted them as little as 1/8 inch deep and all the way up to almost 1/2 inch deep, but you don't want to go any deeper than that 1/2 inch deep. Depth of planting these is really, really important. One thing you really want to remember when you're planting pepper seeds is pepper seeds are extremely warm weather climate seeds. So in order to get them to germinate, you're going to want to plant these and keep them at a certain temperature. Now, these things will not germinate unless they're between 70 to 80 degrees. So in order to keep these, either you have a room that is constantly, 75 degrees. This room that I'm in, it doesn't stay heated. It'll drop down in the lower 60s. But one thing I do is I use a heat mat. And I do recommend you getting a heat mat because they're only about $20, $25. And it's really important. And another thing that I do with my heat mats is I bought one of these little temperature things. And this temperature thing comes with a probe. And you put this down in the soil temp, and you can set this to 75 degrees. And it's going to kick on and off that heat pad whenever this thing reaches down below 70. Say if you have it set at 75 degrees, once it reaches like 74, 73, it's going to kick those heat pads on. That way that stays at a really, really warm temperature. So I do recommend these. It's not, you don't have to have it, but I recommend that you get one because they're really cheap on Amazon. And you can probably get these on Amazon. I think I paid, I want to say $22 for this thing. And the thing about it is I can put it in one cell. I plug all three of those heat pads into a gang box. And you can see this right here. Can you see that plug? You plug that gang box into this here, and it'll control all three of those heat pads with just this one temperature thing. Now, you can run up to three of these on three heat pads on one of these. So that roughly gives me about a 95 to 96% germination rate. So like I said, I highly recommend getting one of these. And one thing about these is you want to maintain that 70 to 80 degree temperatures, because if it drops down below, these already take 7 to 10 days to germinate. And the hotter the pepper, the longer it's going to take. I've had some ghost peppers and Trinidads that I grew last year, and those things took almost 21 days to germinate, even at the 75, 80 degree temperatures. So the hotter the pepper, the longer the germination. So just remember that. But like what we're going to be planting mostly, our jalapenos and chili peppers and stuff like that, 75 degrees, we should get a germination in about 7 to 10 days. And then once you get to that 7 to 10 days, once they break that soil, then you want to make sure you get some artificial light on them. And I'll do another video. You can see these back behind me. These right here are nothing but LED shop lights. And if you get the right lumens and the right Kelvin, then these $20 lights here, you can see it's I got a 4-foot rack back here. One of those lights back here will cover the whole section, and only spent $20. So it's $40 for two of these lights, and you can buy an actual grow light, 2-foot grow light, somewhere it costs you around $45, $50. So like I said, I always use these. They've worked fine. I've been using them for 3 or 4 years, and they work great. And last but not least, just make sure you keep plenty of moisture on these seedlings until they actually start to sprout. Now, once we plant these, and I'll show you what I'm going to do, once we plant them, we're going to water the tops of them. That'll be the last time that we'll water our tops. From the rest of the time, from then on, we're going to bottom water. And I highly recommend bottom watering, because when you start watering from the top, you can get all kinds of other nasty things growing on these things. You can get mold, you can get gnats. It's just a big hassle. And I'll cover that later in a later video. So, all right, remember when you first start with your seed mix, it may come out, it may be even a little more dry than this here. And you don't want to put this into if we put this straight in our pods, and if you'll notice, whenever it's like that, it's real fluffy. When we go to put water on top of this, it's going to float. It's not going to soak that moisture in just real quick. So what I like to do is I like to pre-moisten. I'll add some water, and you can see right there how this is a lot more damp than that there. So when we add this to it, and you can see the difference in the color, this one here. Now then, when we go to add water to that, it's already got moisture in it, so it's going to soak in a lot quicker. So, and the reason I say that is because if you have seed mix in here and it's extremely dry, then whenever you're watering it, if you've only planted that seed a 1/4 inch deep, sometimes it's going to float to the top, and it may just be under the surface, and it may not be deep enough in order to get germination. So always pre-moisten your seed mix before starting. What we're going to do is we're just going to add our soil over here to this, our seed starting mix. So let me rephrase that. So add seed starting mix to the top. I wouldn't recommend doing this on your kitchen table unless you live by yourself and don't want to hear the wife complain. I'm not married, so I don't have anybody to complain. But like I said, this here is just an old workbench that I had out in the shop, and moved it in here, and makes a great seed starting table. All right, so once we get that get that patted down just a little. You don't want to pack it too tight. So now what you can do is you can use one of these and you can push down about 1/4 of an inch. Or what I like to do is I found this little bottle thing, and it almost fits perfectly. Like right there, if you'll see it, it'll actually push it down about 1/4 of an inch. That's the way I like to do mine. You're not packing it down real tight, but and what we'll do is we'll take and we'll put our seed on top of these when we get it, and then we'll lightly cover the top of it with a little bit more. So you can do either way. You can put your seed right on top, push it down just a little bit, cover it back up, either way. So there's 2 or 3 different ways to do this. We're going to put 1 to 2 seeds in per cell. Now, if you're just going to grow 4 or 5 of them yourself, you can plant 4 or 5 or 1 in each cell of different varieties of peppers, however you want to do it. That's fine. I grow about 50 to 60 of each variety of peppers because I do sell some at the local market here. And so normally I'm going to put 2 or 3 per cell. Now, if we weren't going to separate these, we would do 1 per cell. But once these get up and get their first true leaves on them, then I'm going to take and I'll separate them out and I'll put them in their own individual pots. So, but like I said, if you're going to plant just for yourself and you're only going to plant 4 or 5, then I would just do 1 per cell. And to tell you the truth, if you had some extra, if you've got a little extra seed, you could put 2 or 3 per cell. And then once they start growing, you can take and you can pull or cut the smallest ones and leave the healthiest one per plant. That way you make sure that you get a germination, or at least that way if 1 or 2 of them don't germinate, then you're not going to be expecting to get 5 plants and only get 3. So I would recommend, if you've got the room, to go ahead and plant 2 or 3 per cell, just to make sure that if one of them doesn't germinate, then you'll have a better chance with 2 more germinating. All right, now then, once we got all the seeds planted in there, like we were talking about before, we're going to take our pre-moistened soil here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to lightly cover the tops of these. So that puts them all at about 1/4 inch deep. And once we get that, then we're going to take our little water bottle here, and you can get these at Dollar General for about $5, $6. I do recommend it. Holds a little bit of water. We're just going to soak this down really good. And see, if you didn't pre-moisten this, a lot of times this water just stand on top and not penetrate through the seed starting mix, and sometimes that would float. It would actually float your seed to the top and give it some lack of germination. Not all the time, but it's just one of the things that I've learned over a period of garden. And now then what we'll do is we're going to put a label in here. I do recommend that you get one of these here. These are a little more sturdy. I bought them on Amazon. I think you get 5 trays for $20. It comes with this humidity dome that you can actually vent, and it makes a big difference. That way you want to be able to control that humidity. You want a humid environment, but you don't want it to be so humid inside there that the soil stays wet. So once we put that on, we'll crack this humidity dome just a little bit, put it on our heat mat, and 7 to 10 days, we should have some little sprouts coming in. Hope you enjoyed this video. Think about subscribing to the channel. Hit that bell notification. That way you're notified every single time that I put a video out. And hit that like button. It sure helps me out, and I sure appreciate it. So, until next time, like always, keep her growing.